Pirate kings, pirate queens, non-binary monarchs of the sea. Hello, how's it going? How are we doing? As you can tell, I am still working on that OP08 data breakdown. Well, try not to have a data breakdown myself, if you know what I'm saying. No, I'm just kidding. We're doing great. But I was able to get through a couple of the decks tonight. I am sorry I was not able to get this done as quickly as I would have hoped. I am very excited to share all this info with you. But we talked about a really cool one tonight, a new deck for OP08. So I just want to share this with you in the meantime. Hopefully it helps tide things over. I want to get out by the end of the week, but like, I can't make. I'm here. I'm gonna do what I can. Here's what I got so far. I hope you enjoy it. Here is Kalgara. And now we'll get into our first new deck of the video. Our first leader from set 8, number 10, Yellow Kalgara. This is a really cool one. One for the effect, which I'll get into in a second, but two, I guess, just the lore behind Kalgara. So for anyone who was paying attention to the buzz around set 8 when it first came out in the East, there was no buzz about Kalgara, at least from what I and the friends I talked about this stuff remember. People were talking about King, they were talking about Pudding, they're talking about Marco. Kalgara, who? Nothing. But then, as soon as we get to the first CS of Eastern OP08, Kalgara was the only leader to get a top 16. We love an underdog story. You know, that's what One Piece is all about. That's great. And that's really what I think Kalgara has going for him is the surprise factor. The fact that he is that underdog leader that most people don't expect to see. Of course, he is somewhat of a known quantity now. But in these first couple weeks of OP08, if people have been paying so much attention to OP07, either forgot about him, don't know what he does. I look at '08 lists more than anyone I know, pretty much, and I forgot what he did until I started researching for this video again. If someone's not prepared to play against him, you could score some nice wins. The other thing I like about Kalgara is that he is a very, very aggressive yellow leader. I know people talk about Katakuri being so aggressive with the number of bodies he has. I like to think of Katakuri more as a mid-range deck, and then Enel as defense. But Kalgara, at least relative to the other yellow decks, gives us a nice spectrum of playstyle in yellow as a color, and I just think that's neat. But getting into Kalgara's ability, with one don't attached, when attacking, put a character with the Shandorian Warriors type from your hand into play that has a cost equal to or less than the number of Don cards you control. Then, if you played a card, put the top card of your life into your hand. So, funny enough, this is very akin to Purple Luffy. We are using our life as a resource to develop our board specifically. In Kalgara's case, we are basically doubling the number of Don we have on our field on those given turns where we use this effect. But the big downside of that is instead of having more Don, we have a bigger board but less cards in our hand. And as we get to the later turns, as we have less and less life, that can really become a problem. The construction of this deck does somewhat mitigate that. You will notice that our highest cost character is the 6 cost vanilla Kalgara, and then we have a bunch of 1 cost defensive events in order to make the most of those fewer cards we have left in our hand. But before I get too ahead of myself, let's get to the card by card. I'm not going to do this for every single leader, but since Kalgara is completely new to us and just really, really cool, I figure I'll do that here. Shura in this deck may be the most consistent a searcher is ever going to be. Of course, because we can't include him since he can't search for himself, he has 36 targets. 36 targets. If you whiff that search, I am sorry. That is just rough. Rough, like the dog. Holy, I have no idea what I'm saying at this point. It's very late, but I had to take the excuse for that pun. Not intended, but very much carried through. Holy and Ohm. That combo is going to be very much in spirit with this deck. We love getting to use our Don to play double the characters. But what if one of those characters also plays double the characters? Ohm's effect to gain 1k power when you're at 2 life or less also works wonders with Kalgara's ability. And what you can do on turn 3 going first is you can just put 1 Don on Kalgara normally, then you use 4 to play the Ohm Holy, attack with him, and then you can play a 5 cost as well. Well, good chance you'll reverse the order and play the Holy last if you're sequencing that correctly, but you know what I'm trying to say here. Our other forecast is this Wiper from set 8. He is a 5k body, but he's also a 2k counter, so you need to be careful about when you use him for what purpose. If you need bodies, then he can get the job done, but at the same time, our hand becomes infinitely more valuable as the game goes on. But on play, what he can do is he can look at the top 4 and you search for upper yard. We only have 4 targets, but if you find it, it is a card that then replaces itself again. There is a lot of value to be generated with him. Just might be a gamble as far as whether you get to get that value off of him. Though now that I look at him again, this is something I forgot when I first talked about him, his effect actually functions just like Ohm's does. So if you already have the upper yard in hand, it doesn't matter if you end up finding it off the search, because he lets you cheat the upper yard out, and that really does seem to be the true value here. So that's another dimension to the case we had for using him. I do still think that it is something you need to consider very carefully as you are learning this deck and when that effect is going to come in most handy. Actually, while we're here, let's just talk about Upper Yard real quick. It is a 1-cost stage and has the same effect as Shura. You search the top 5 for a Sky Island type card. This has not been played because that's just an on-play effect. It's not something you rest each turn. It is one and done. You can't attack with it. You can't do anything else with it normally. But skipping over Satri real quick. 2K, extra body, great card. That's all I have to say about him. Is that this Wiper from back in set 6, I believe, has given us a little more utility for Upper Yard, and we finally have the deck to play this combo in. He is a 5-cost 7k with no counter. On play, you may return one cost stage to the bottom of its owner's deck. Look at the top 5, reveal an Upper Yard or a Shandora Warrior, and add it to your hand. So while we don't get to, rest the Upper Yard to keep searching, it does end up generating value as an activation condition for this Wiper as the game goes on. And of course, you can play that Wiper off the leader effect. That's something to keep in mind for all these cards. I know there are, probably some standard combos to do with that. Aside from Unholy, I haven't really had a chance to delve into those. There are some articles I want to read about that and try it out. Maybe I'll show y'all some games at some point. No promises, but something I'd very much like to do. But then we have Mont Blanc Noland. On play, if your leader has the Shandoran Warrior type and you have a Kalgara character in play, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life. So I guess if we do want to talk about, a standard play, really just an on-curve play, if you are at 7 or more, you play that Kalgara first, put the other Don on your leader, use the effect, play the Noland from your hand, and then you are basically replacing the life that you lost, and you don't have 2 bodies on the board. What can I say? The power of friendship. The power of friendship shall overcome all and heal your wounds. Praise Kalgara. What was that? Anyway, 5-cost Ace. Great card. We love Rush. Again, just like with Ohm, we will find ourselves at 2 life very early. So 5-cost 7k. That's swinging the second he comes down most times. And then on to all of these counter events we have. Man, y'all remember counter events? Back in my day. Back in 2022. We play counter events all the time. These kids don't know what they have. Gen Alpha. Generational conflict. Man, this deck is really awakening something in me. We have 10 counter events in here. You can definitely trim the amount of these. Elthor, 1 cost, give up to one of your characters 2,000 counter for the battle. Then if your opponent has 2 or less life, give that card an additional 2,000 power. With the aggressive capabilities this deck has, with the ability to play so many characters and just start swinging face off the bat, it's very likely that your opponent will also be at 2 life as well, or will be by the time that you need to use this event. But if you find yourself needing to counter for something less than 4,000, may I interest you in Blaze Slice, or I think as the sim calls it, Flame Split. This is a really cool main and counter event where you can give a leader or character an extra 1k counter, and then if your opponent has 2 life or less, you can rest one of their 4-cost or lower characters. So if you need to rest that last blocker you need for the game, you can put that sideways. You can stop one of your opponent's attacks with one of their smaller characters, potentially. This is a really, really versatile card. I have seen this show up in so many rogue decks in 07. It's been in pretty much any... It's been on the list of potential cards for any yellow deck since it came out. I'm very glad to see it start showing up more in this early post-ban Set 8 format. And then we have the Earth Won't Lose. Counter event, if your leader has the Shandoran Warriors type, your leader or up to one of your characters gets plus 3k power, and then you play an upper yard from your hand. So this is a guard point that is specific solely to Kalgara at this point. I would love a wiper leader. I was really hoping for like maybe a green-yellow wiper leader at some point, but time will tell. And then you get to play that upper yard. So we go more into that combo of reusing upper yard. Verth is a hot commodity here, and we are seeing its utility. It's a nice card. It's a nice card. The trigger says draw 2 cards, discard 1. Great for your resource game, great for defense, very helpful to let this deck stick around throughout the game as long as it needs to close things out. That is my very, very slapdash, very piecing things together in the moment based off of a quick article I read at the gym on Saturday, understanding of the deck. Hope that you're as intrigued with this as I am. And the other thing I haven't mentioned yet is that, y'all, this deck is insanely cheap. Ace is the most expensive card, and as you'll see, he's not the most obligatory card in here. There are other things you can play instead. If you're a budget player, if you just like weird, cool, unique decks, pick Kalgara up. I don't think he's going to have the same level of strength as he did in the earliest phases of 08. Again, I think the surprise factor is really the best thing he has going for him right now. But the fun factor, we can't discount that. I'm excited to play this one. And heading into the card counts, going off of the point I was making about the Ace, those first 40 slots are pretty much monolithic. You are running 4 of these 10 most popular cards in pretty much every case. For the more fringe options, there are some cool things here, ones I haven't really considered or thought about here. A lot of these are just generically good yellow cards. Amaru, Disappear, Gadatsu, Genbo, Isa, those are all searchable. Genbo is also another 3-cost vanilla that we can play, so very early potential to get Kalgara's effect off, as well as the 7-cost NL if you want a cheaper option, like monetarily, in order to get your rush going and to potentially give you some insurance against black. He could go there. And also, he is searchable. I didn't mention that before. Here are those cuts and additions. Like we said, Flame Split, Ace, Elthor. Those are very easy to trim off of here. And our easiest 10 additions are 2 copies of Frankie. We love having counter in here. Again, our hand size gets very low as the game goes on, and he could give us another body. Feeds into the whole concept of this deck. Maru, if we really want to close that game out, we're very aggressive. We hate seeing blockers get in our way. And then we're peppering in copies of Disappear. Potentially Thunderbolt, I think mainly for the trigger. I don't want to hard cast that here, but if I have to. And then up to 3 Gadatsu. 3 was the most successful count of that card in this deck. Kalgara's cool. I love this one. I'm really excited to pick it up, and I can afford to pick it up. I can't say that a lot about a lot of decks after the events of this spring, but I can't wait to play it, and I hope you're excited too.